The gunshots echoed across the canyon like thunder trapped between stone walls. Hank Morgan crouched behind a jagged boulder, Winchester rifle pressed against his shoulder, the stock worn smooth from years of use. Three outlaws had him pinned, two on the ridge, one circling behind. Gunsmoke hung in the air, bitter as regret. Hank inhaled slowly, held it, then squeezed the trigger. The first outlaw dropped without a sound. Before the body hit the ground, Hank worked the lever, chambered another round, and found his second target. Another shot, another body tumbling down the rocky slope. The third man broke cover, running for the tree line. Hank tracked him through the iron sights, then lowered his rifle. Let him run. Let him carry the message. Among the dead men's belongings, Hank found it, an Apache medicine pouch, adorned with sacred beads. Stolen. Defiled. He tucked it inside his coat, close to the heart that hadn't felt anything but cold determination for years. I fought in the war, Hank's voice carried over the whistling wind. Thought I buried my brother, survived 3 brutal winters on the frontier. I'm not afraid of dying. He mounted his bay Mustang, adjusting the Winchester in its scabbard. But I've got business to finish before I meet my maker. Hank Morgan stood 6'2", shoulders broad as an ox yoke, face weathered like tanned leather from 20 seasons under the western sun. At 45, his dark hair showed silver at the temples, and a jagged scar ran from his left ear to the edge of his jawline. A parting gift from a Confederate bayonet at Shiloh. His cabin stood alone in Wyoming Territory, 1875, where the foothills rose toward mountains still capped with early summer snow. 10 head of cattle, a small vegetable patch, and a spring-fed stream provided just enough to survive. Just enough to be left alone. That's how he wanted it after the war. After Tom. The memory came unbidden as he cleaned his Colt .45 Army revolver at the rough-hewn table. Tom's face laughing as they enlisted together. Tom's face twisted in pain as the life bled out of him at Chancellorsville, or so Hank had thought. Should have never left your side, little brother, Hank whispered to the empty cabin. He'd been ordered to scout ahead, left his unit, left Tom for just 2 hours, returned to find half his company ambushed. Tom lay among the fallen, bleeding badly from a chest wound. Hank had held him as his breathing grew weaker, watched his eyes close, felt the grip on his hand slacken. The medics had pulled Hank away, told him Tom wouldn't survive the hour. Hank had believed them, carried that grief west, away from the killing fields, away from memories. Only years later did a letter reach him. Tom had survived, barely, had spent months recovering in a field hospital. By then, Hank was already gone, a ghost riding the frontier. The letter said Tom was coming west to find him. That was 3 years ago. No further word had come. Hank finished with the revolver, loaded it, and set it aside. From a shelf, he gathered dried herbs and roots, medicines he'd learned to prepare from a half-Cheyenne trapper 3 winters ago. He owed the Apache band to the south for warning him about rustlers last season. A debt was a debt. The Apache camp appeared through the morning mist like a vision from another time. Dogs barked in alarm as Hank approached, hands visible, pace unhurried. Warriors materialized from between lodges, watchful but not hostile. He'd barely dismounted when the screams erupted from the large teepee at the center of camp. "The chief is dying!" a young brave shouted in broken English. "Shot by white men. No medicine man." Inside the lodge, Thunderhawk lay on a bed of furs, blood soaking through crude bandages wrapped around his torso. The copper smell of blood hung thick in the smoky air. Hank turned to leave. Not his fight, not his people. Then he saw it. On a warrior's shield propped against the teepee wall, the same distinctive mark he'd spotted on the dead outlaw's saddlebags. Black River Gang. The same insignia he'd found on wanted posters from Colorado to Wyoming, the same men rumored to prey on settlers and tribes alike. Memory flashed hot and urgent. Tom gasping, fingers clutching Hank's sleeve. Promise me, don't run anymore. Hank shrugged off his coat. Boil water. Bring clean cloths. Now. Through the night, Hank worked, hands steady as he extracted the bullet, packed the wound with herbs, stitched torn flesh with sinew thread. Years of battlefield medicine guiding every movement. Thunderhawk never cried out, though sweat beaded on his forehead, muscles rigid with pain. Dawn broke over the camp when Thunderhawk's fever finally broke. The chief's eyes flickered open, clear and aware. He studied Hank with the intensity of a hawk assessing prey. "You saved my life, White Horse Man," he said in perfect English. "For this, choose any of my daughters. You have earned her." 4 young women were brought forward. 3 stood tall and proud in the front. Behind them stood a 4th. She was different. Lighter skin, suggesting mixed blood. Hair the color of burnished copper, falling in thick waves past her shoulders. Dressed in Apache garb, but with a deerskin dress torn at the shoulder. Bruises on her arms, defiance in her stance. Their eyes met. Hank saw something familiar there. Survival, determination, pain carried like an invisible wound. "I don't take women as payment," Hank said, gathering his gear. Thunderhawk nodded slowly. "You are honorable. Then accept my friendship instead." Hank left the teepee, mounted his horse, and turned toward home. He'd ridden barely 50 yards when he heard hoofbeats behind him. The 4th girl had followed, mounted on a painted pony. "Go back," he called. She rode alongside him. "My name is Sarah. I won't go back." "Your father offered you. I refused." "My father is dead." Her voice cut like a frozen river. "Thunderhawk is my uncle. I don't belong there anymore." "You don't belong with me either." "I don't belong to you. I belong to myself." She straightened in her saddle. "The men who shot my uncle are hunting me. I'm safer with you than alone." Hank studied her. 20 maybe, old enough to know her mind, young enough to have hope. "I live alone for a reason." "Everyone has reasons," she answered. "Mine are better than yours." Despite himself, Hank nearly smiled. "My cabin's no place for a woman." "Then I'll improve it." They rode in silence for miles, the mountains growing larger before them. Finally, Hank spoke again. "Why me?" Sarah's eyes never left the horizon. "Because you could have taken what was offered, but didn't. In this territory, that makes you rare as gold dust." Night had fallen by the time they reached Hank's cabin. The structure stood dark against the star-filled sky, rough-hewn logs chinked with mud and moss. A small barn stood nearby, sheltering Hank's horse and meager livestock. "You take the bed," Hank said, lighting the oil lamp. "I'll sleep by the stove." Sarah stood in the center of the one-room cabin, taking inventory with shrewd eyes. "You need curtains, and that chair's about to collapse." Without waiting for response, she set about making herself useful. Stoking the fire, arranging her few belongings, mending her torn dress with needle and thread, Hank provided. When the dress slipped from her shoulder during her work, Hank glimpsed deep bruises and what looked like burn marks. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing, turning away to give her privacy. Morning brought clarity and purpose. Hank watched from the porch as Sarah drew water from the well. Her movements were efficient, practiced, nothing wasted. A survivor's economy. "Can you shoot?" he asked when she returned. "My father taught me, before they killed him." Hank nodded. "In this territory, nobody survives who can't defend themselves." He handed her his spare Colt, watching as she checked the cylinder with practiced ease, testing the weight and balance. Not her first time holding a weapon. "Winchester's by the door if you need it. Extra ammunition in the lockbox under the bed." Sarah slid the revolver into the pocket of her dress. "Expecting trouble?" "Always." Hank pointed toward the northern ridge. "Saw smoke signals yesterday. Someone's watching." "Black River Gang," Sarah said without emotion. They always find me. Before Hank could respond, a twig snapped in the forest edge. Both froze. Inside, Hank whispered. Now. She moved without hesitation, ducking through the door. Hank followed, retrieving his Winchester. Through a crack in the shutters, they spotted them. Two riders approaching through the trees, moving with the caution of men hunting, not traveling. Back door, Hank murmured. Circle around. I'll draw them to the front. Sarah nodded once, slipping out the rear like a shadow. Hank stepped onto the front porch, rifle held casually across his body. This is private property. The lead rider, bearded, with a face scarred by smallpox, smiled without warmth. Just passing through, friend. Looking for a girl. Apache mixed blood. Seen her? Haven't seen anyone in weeks. Hank shifted his weight, angling for a better position. Suggest you keep moving. That's mighty unfriendly, the second man said, hand drifting toward his holster. Maybe we should have a look around your place. The first shot came from the trees to the left, Sarah firing the Colt with deadly accuracy. The second rider jerked in his saddle, blood blooming across his chest. Hank raised the Winchester in one fluid motion, firing twice. The bearded man fell, his horse bolting in panic. Silence descended, broken only by the whisper of pine needles in the breeze. Sarah emerged from the tree line, Colt still raised. There will be more. Hank knelt beside the dead outlaws, searching their pockets. In the bearded man's saddlebag, he found a crude map with markings indicating gold deposits and a tattered wanted poster with Sarah's description. They're not just after you, Hank said, studying the map. What aren't you telling me? Sarah holstered the Colt. My father was Chief Black Eagle. Before Thunderhawk, he discovered gold in the sacred mountains, refused to tell the miners where. Her voice remained steady. They tortured him, killed him. I'm the only one who knows the location now. Sarah rolled up her sleeve, revealing an intricate tattoo encircling her upper arm. Not just decorative symbols, but a topographical map cleverly disguised in traditional Apache art. This is the map to our people's sacred ground, where the gold lies. It's not just wealth, it's our heritage. My father entrusted it to me before he died. And your sister? Hank asked, watching her face. Sarah looked up sharply. How did you know about my sister? You check the northern horizon every morning, looking for someone. A long pause. Emma. She's 14, hidden with friends at another camp. I haven't seen her in months, not since the attack that separated us. Hank folded the map, tucking it into his shirt pocket. These men, Black River Gang, they've left a trail of blood from Colorado to here. Same men I've been tracking for 3 years. Why? Sarah asked. Hank's eyes hardened. My brother Tom, he survived Chancellorsville, came looking for me out west. Last letter I got said he'd found my trail in Colorado. Then nothing. Now I know why. So our wars are the same, Sarah said. They've always been the same, Hank replied. Just took me too long to see it. They spent the day fortifying the cabin. Hank showed Sarah how to set tripwires among the trees, rig shotgun traps that would fire if disturbed, reinforce the shutters with metal from his tool shed. Sarah proved herself invaluable, nimble, quick-thinking, unafraid of hard work. By sundown, the cabin had transformed into a fortress. Over a simple meal of beans and dried venison, Sarah studied Hank across the flickering firelight. After we survive this, what then? Haven't thought that far ahead, Hank admitted. I have, Sarah said. First we find Emma. Then we decide about the gold. My people need protection. But they don't need white men's greed destroying what's left of our lands. One battle at a time, Hank agreed. The idea of after felt foreign. He'd spent so long looking backward, carrying ghosts. Outside, an owl called once, then fell silent. An unnatural silence followed. Hank reached for his rifle. "They're here." Jebediah Black stood 6'4", broad as a barn door, with a beard black as coal and eyes like ice chips. Behind him, 6 hardened killers spread out in a semicircle before the cabin. "Morgan!" Black's voice boomed across the clearing. "Send out the girl, and you might live till sunrise." Hank positioned himself at the front window, rifle ready. Sarah took the side window, Colt in one hand, shotgun propped nearby. "Last chance, Morgan," Black shouted. "She's not worth dying for." "Nobody's dying here except you," Hank called back, "unless you ride away now." Black's laugh was like stones grinding together. "I like your spirit, Morgan. I'll make it quick when the time comes." The first volley of bullets splintered the shutters. Hank returned fire, dropping one outlaw with a clean shot through the chest. Sarah fired the shotgun, forcing 2 men to dive for cover. The battle escalated. Muzzle flashes illuminating the night, the crack of rifles overlapping with the deeper boom of shotguns. Smoke filled the cabin as Hank and Sarah fired and reloaded, moved and covered each other. A bullet grazed Hank's shoulder, hot pain slicing through muscle. He ignored it, sighting down the Winchester at a shadow moving toward the barn. Sarah fought with cold precision, no wasted movements, no hesitation. When an outlaw crashed through the back door, she put 2 bullets in his chest before he cleared the threshold. "They're falling back," Hank called, spotting movement retreating toward the trees. A flaming arrow arced through the night sky, landing on the cabin's roof with a soft thud. "They're burning us out," Sarah said, already moving for the water bucket. 3 more flaming arrows followed. One found purchase in the dry pine of the roof. Fire spread quickly, hungry flames licking at the night air. "We need to move," Hank decided. "Back door, I'll cover you." Sarah grabbed the rifle and ammunition. "No, we move together." They burst from the rear door as the roof began to collapse, running low across the yard toward the cover of the barn. Bullets kicked up dirt at their heels. Inside the barn, Hank barred the door, then shoved aside a mound of hay to reveal a trap door. "Root cellar, leads to a tunnel, dug it my first year here." "Always prepared," Sarah said, admiration clear in her voice. The tunnel emerged a quarter-mile away, in a stand of pine trees beside the creek. From there, they had a clear view of the burning cabin, Black's men surrounding it like wolves around a dying campfire. "They think we're still inside," Sarah whispered. Hank checked his ammunition. "Gives us the advantage. Time to stop running." "I thought you'd never say that," Sarah replied, eyes reflecting the distant flames. Dawn painted the eastern sky blood red as Hank and Sarah crept through the forest, circling behind Black's men. The outlaws had made camp near the smoldering ruins of the cabin, confident their quarry had perished. "6 men left," Hank whispered. "Black will be the one in the black duster." A twig snapped somewhere to their right, too deliberate to be an animal. Hank spun, rifle raised, to find himself facing the business end of a bow drawn to full tension. Behind it stood a tall Apache warrior, face painted for battle. 5 more warriors materialized from the forest, surrounding them. The lead warrior spoke in Apache, his tone demanding. Sarah responded in the same language, her voice steady. The warrior lowered his bow, studying Hank with narrowed eyes. "I am Eagle Eye, brother of Sarah. We come for vengeance against the men who killed our father." "Your timing's good," Hank said. "They're just down there, probably sleeping off last night's whiskey." Eagle Eye nodded once. "My sister says you fight with honor, that you refuse to take her when offered." "A man doesn't own another person," Hank replied. "Not where I come from." A ghost of a smile crossed Eagle Eye's face. "Then we fight together, White Horse Man. Emma is safe at our hidden camp. She waits for her sister's return." Relief washed over Sarah's face. the first true softening Hank had seen. The plan formed quickly. The Apache warriors would attack from the east, drawing the outlaws' attention. Hank and Sarah would strike from the west, catching them in crossfire. The attack began with war cries from the east, followed immediately by gunfire. Black's men scrambled for weapons, caught off guard. Hank and Sarah opened fire from their position, cutting down two outlaws before they could reach cover. The Apache warriors charged, arrows finding targets with unerring accuracy. Jebediah Black roared orders, firing his revolver wildly. "Find the girl! Kill the rest!" Hank worked his way closer, Winchester speaking death with each pull of the trigger. Sarah followed, covering his advance, moving with the grace of a mountain lion. Finally, only Black remained, wounded but dangerous as he took cover behind a fallen log. "Morgan!" he shouted. "I know who you are now! Your brother died crying your name!" Rage surged through Hank's veins, hot as molten iron. "My brother?" Black's laugh was ugly. "Tom Morgan. Followed your trail to Colorado. Had your picture. Said his big brother would come for me someday." "Where?" Hank demanded, voice raw with emotion. "Ladeville. 2 years back. Tracked me 3 states before I put him down." Black's voice dripped with satisfaction. "Told him his hero brother wouldn't save him. Told him you'd never find his grave." "You're a dead man," Hank shouted, charging forward. Black rose suddenly, firing twice. Hank felt the bullet tear through his side, but kept moving, Winchester raised. 3 rapid shots, all finding their mark. Black staggered, then fell, blood staining the front of his duster. Hank stood over him, rifle aimed at Black's heart. "This is for Tom." The final shot echoed across the clearing. Among Black's possessions, they found it, a locket containing a faded photograph of Hank in his Union uniform, and a journal with detailed maps to gold deposits throughout Apache territory. Alongside it, papers showing mining claims across tribal lands, deeds stolen from settlers, and bounties for several tribal chiefs. Most precious of all, a tattered letter addressed to Hank, written in Tom's hand, never delivered. Confirmation of everything Hank had feared and the closure he'd sought for years. Eagle Eye took the sacred objects stolen from his people. Hank gathered evidence of Black's crimes against the settlers and tribes alike. "What will you do now?" Eagle Eye asked as they prepared to part ways. Hank looked at Sarah, who stood tall beside her brother. "Rebuild. Start again." "You are no longer a stranger to our people," Eagle Eye said. "When the moon is full again, we feast to honor our father's memory. You will come and meet Emma." It wasn't a question, but Hank nodded anyway. "I'll be there." The Apache warriors departed, heading toward their hidden camp in the mountains. All except Sarah. "Your people need you," Hank said quietly. "Your sister needs you." "I'll return with Emma," she replied, "after the celebration. I've chosen my path." Together they rode back to the remains of Hank's cabin. Standing amidst the ashes, Hank didn't see loss, but possibility. "I'll build it twice as big," he said. "Proper bedroom, maybe 2. Bigger barn, room for more cattle. Good land here, just needs the right hands working it." Sarah smiled, the first full smile he'd seen from her. "Our hands." In the weeks that followed, they worked side by side, clearing debris, laying foundations, planning for a future neither had dared imagine. When the full moon rose, they rode together to the Apache camp, where Sarah reunited with Emma, a slender girl with the same fierce eyes as her sister. After the celebration, they returned to the half-built cabin. Not just Sarah and Hank, but Emma too. 3 survivors carving out a new beginning. The sun was setting as they stood on the ridge overlooking the valley, the first stars appearing in the eastern sky. "The frontier isn't just land," Hank said, eyes on the horizon where new possibilities waited. It's where a person draws the line for themselves, where they decide what kind of life they'll build. Sarah took his hand, her grip strong and sure. Then we'll draw that line together. Behind them lay ashes and endings. Before them stretched a new wilderness, uncharted and full of promise. Not just land to be claimed, but a life to be forged by their own hands. The final frontier.